Hello! The MO201 Excel Expert exam contains several functions as part of its syllabus. In this video, I will walk you through the usage of all of them using one simple example for each of them. We are constantly uploading new material, so click on subscribe and hit the bell button to get notified when new videos become available. We have also released a video for all the MO200 Excel Associate exam functions. You can find the link for that at the top. In that video, we described the if command as an introduction to the logical functions of Excel. It is now time to see some more of the functions of Excel that use logic. We'll talk about the function AND and the function OR. In our example sheet, we want to evaluate the following for each row. We want the values in column A, B and C to be greater than 10 and the value in column D to be true. We want to calculate the result of this in E column. We will use the AND function, which returns true if all the logical expressions inside it are true. Otherwise, it returns false. We type the function name and include all the logical expressions as its arguments. We autofill the whole column and we have what we were going for. We want now in cell E1 to find out if at least one of our newly created logical values is true. If it is, then cell E1 should also be true. We will use the OR function, which does exactly what we want. It returns true if at least one of the logical values that it includes as arguments is true. Otherwise, it returns false. So, we type the function name and as argument we include the values of column E. The result is true since there is at least one value in column E that is true. The next function we are going to talk about is the NOT function. This function returns the inverse of a logical value. So if a value is true, it returns false and vice versa. In our example, we want to invert a list of logical values. We type the function name and then include the logical value as attribute. A pretty straightforward process. The switch function is a function that can be easily replaced by multiple nested if functions, but by using switch we have a cleaner approach. We want in cell area A7 to A9 to show the word low if the value in the same row of column B is 1.5, or to show the word high if the B column value is 2.5. If the value is any other besides those two, we want to display the word unknown. We will use the switch command followed by the cell which contains the value of the B column. Then we type the first value, 1.5, and after that what we want to display for this value, which is the word low. We then include our next value along with its required result. As a last value, we can choose the default result that will be shown if none of the previous values were found. We autofill our required cell area and notice that, as expected, the first row displays the word low, the second the word unknown, and the last the word high. To make things easier, Microsoft added in Excel one more function to achieve the same result, the ifs function. We will use the ifs function in the same example as before. In this case though, we want to show the word low when the value in column B is lower or equal to 2, and the word high if the value is higher or equal to 2.5. We type the name of the function followed by the first logical condition and the value we want our function to return if that condition is met. We do the same for the second, click on Enter and autofill the whole column. the current example, we don't need to set a default value that will be shown if none of the other logical conditions is met. If we wanted to do so though, we would have to add one more pair of logical condition and value. The condition would be the logical true, and the value would be whatever we wanted the default value to be. So, if we follow the switch example, we should have used the value unknown. The SUMIF function combines the functionality of if and sum. In short, it sums a cell range if that or another cell range meets certain criteria. In cell E15 of the current sheet, we want to sum all the points of the Gladbach soccer team over the years. We type the name of the function and then the range in which we search for the values that fulfill our criteria. In this case, it is the column with the team names. Then we select the criteria. Finally, we select a cell range containing the values the function will use to calculate the sum. If the first and the last cell range are the same, we can omit the final argument. In a similar way, the averageIf function combines the functionality of if and average. In short, it calculates the average of a cell range if that or another cell range meets certain criteria. In the current sheet, we want to calculate the average grade for each student, but only for those lessons that the grade is above or equal to 5. In the 8th row, we type the function name along with a cell range that must meet our criteria. Then we type the criteria inside double quotes. Since our criteria range is the same as the range of the values we want to calculate the average for, we can omit the last argument. We autofill the function for the rest of the row. As in the previous functions, COUNTIF function combines the functionality of if and count. In short, it counts the cells inside the cell range if that cell range meets certain criteria. In our example, we want to count all the products with final price greater to 250. We type the function name followed by the range we want to count and then by the criteria it has to fulfill. Hitting on Enter shows us the required result. But what happens if we want to use the sum, average or count functions in cell ranges that meet more than one criterion? In the current sheet, we want to calculate the sum of quantity for every sale that consisted of more than 40 units and took place after February 1st of 2004. We type the function name, SUMIFs, followed by the range that contains the values we want to sum. Then we type the pairs of criteria ranges and the criterion each of them has to fulfill. We hit on Enter and we have the required result. AverageIfs use the same syntax as SUMIFs. In the current sheet, we want to calculate the average total price for every sale that happened in the West District and consisted of more than 100 units. We type the function name, followed by the range that contains the value we want to calculate the average for. Then, we type the pairs of criteria ranges and the criterion each of them has to fulfill. We hit on enter and we have the required result. Microsoft added two more conditional functions in its Excel arsenal, the maxifs and minifs functions. They both have similar syntax as the sumifs and averageifs functions we have seen before. In the current sheet, we want to find the maximum total price for every sale that happened in the West District and consisted of more than 50 units. We type the function name followed by the range that contains the values we want to find the maximum of. Then, we type the pairs of criteria ranges and the criterion each one of them has to fulfill. We hit on enter and we have the required result. In the minifs example, we want to find the minimum total price for every sale that happened in the West District and consisted of less than 50 units. We type the function name followed by the range that contains the values we want to find the minimum of. Then, we type the pairs of criteria ranges and criterion each of them has to fulfill. We hit on enter and we have the required result. The countifs function syntax differentiates a bit from the others. In the current sheet, we want to calculate the number of sales that consisted of more than 40 units and took place after February 1st, 2004. We type the function name, then we type the pairs of criteria ranges and the criterion each one of them has to fulfill. We hit on enter and we have the required result. The now function returns the current date and time formatted as date and time. In the current sheet, we want to enter the current date and time in cell A1 using the now function. Then, in cell A2, we want to add 4 days to that date, and in cell A3, we want to add 365 days to that date. The now function takes no arguments, so we just type it and have the current date and time. You can easily perform simple calculations using dates. If in cell A2 we add 4 to the value of cell A1, the result will be 4 days after the current date. And if in cell A3 we add 365 days, the result will be the date and time exactly 1 year after the current date and time. The today function is similar to the now function, but it returns the current date with the time part of the result being 0. It also doesn't take any arguments. In the current example, we want to count the days between our birth date and the current date. In cell A1, we type our birthday. In cell A2, we use the today function to get the current date. And in cell A3, we subtract our birth date from the current date and we have the number of days that have passed. Keep in mind that A3 cell has to be a number Excel format, not a date Excel format, for the days to be shown. The weekday function returns a number that represents a day of the week, and it ranges from 1 to 7. It takes two arguments: the serial number, which represents a date. It can be the return of a date function or a correctly formatted date. The second argument is the return type, which defines which day each number represents. The default value is 1, which defines that the numbers returned from the function are from Sunday 1 to Saturday 7. In the current example, we will omit this value since we want the default behavior. We click in cell I2 and type the function name. Then we select the cell A2, which contains a date format value, and we hit enter. This returns us the number of the day, which is 5. Since we use the default behavior, the number 5 represents Thursday. In several cases, especially in the professional use of Excel, we need to add a specific number of workdays to a date. The function workday does just that. In the current example, we need to add 5 working days to the date in cell A2. We type the function name followed by the required start date and the number of workdays we need to add. We hit on enter and we have our result. Excel automatically skipped the weekends and calculated the correct date. Excel provides numerous financial functions. The syllabus specifically mentions 2 of them. The NPER function is a financial function that returns the number of periods for an investment. You can use it to get the number of payment periods for a loan or investment given the amount, the interest rate, and periodic payment amount. In the current example, we have 6 rows of investment data. We will use the NPER function to calculate the number of monthly periods for each one. We type the function name followed by all the necessary data as they are shown in the table. Since the payments are monthly, we divided the annual investment rate by 12. The last parameter is whether the payment is due at the beginning or the end of the period. The first 3 investments are due at the end and the rest at the beginning, so we have to choose the appropriate option. With a few clicks, we have the number of periods for 6 different investments. Very efficient. What happens if we know the number of periods, but we don't know the amount for the periodic payment? The PMT function helps us calculate this. In this example, we have 6 loans and we want to find out the payment amount for each one. Since the payments are monthly, we divided the annual investment rate by 12. The last parameter is whether the payment is due at the beginning or the end of the period. The first 3 investments are due at the end and the rest at the beginning, so we have to choose the appropriate option. And we are done. Now it is time to describe the lookup functions that you may find in the exam. We will start with the most famous one. The VLOOKUP function is used to look up and retrieve data from a specific column in a table. The column with the values you are searching for has to be on the left of the lookup columns. The V in the VLOOKUP function stands for vertical. In our example, we want to fill the country column of our table based on the country table appearing on the right. We type the function name followed by the value we are searching for from the team column. Then we select our lookup table and the column number of that table we want the function to return. In this case, we want the second column that shows the country, so we type 2. Notice that we have used absolute reference for the table since we plan to use the function to the whole country column. We have omitted the last argument of the function. This argument tells Excel if we want to find an exact or an approximate match. We are looking for an exact match, which is the default option, so we skipped it. If we want to perform a horizontal lookup, which means that we want to retrieve data from rows rather than columns, we can use the HLOOKUP function, where H stands for horizontal. The way to use the function is almost exactly the same as VLOOKUP. We type the function name, the value we are looking for, and the absolute reference of the table. The only difference is that instead of the column number we used in VLOOKUP, we type the row number of the value we want the function to return. Instead of skipping the last argument, we select false, which is the default value, and means we need the exact match. We automatically fill the whole row and we are done. One of the most useful functions in Excel that is basically used in combination with other functions is the match function. It is used to locate the position of a lookup value in a row, column, or table. Its usage is pretty straightforward. In this example, we want to find the position of two products in our main products table. We type the function name, followed by the lookup value, and the absolute reference of the table, much as we did for the VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP functions. For the final argument, we choose the option for exact match, which is the option with number 0. We drag the cell to fill the second row, and we have the row number for each product. The last function we are going to talk about in this video is the index function. By itself it may not seem so impressive, but paired with other functions it gives Excel some unique functionality. Basically, what it does is to return a specific cell from a table, provided that we supply the column number and the row number of the table where that cell can be found. So in the current example we want to find the cell of the table in cells A1 to D6. We know that it resides in the second row and the third column of the table. We type the function name, followed by the cell area of the table, the row number, and the column number. In this example it is probably easier to spot the desired cell manually, but usually the row and column numbers are not known. They are the result of other functions, like match. This concludes our small walkthrough of all the functions that are included inside the MO201 Excel Expert exam. Don't forget to visit our channel where you can find examples for almost all functions and features of Excel. We are constantly uploading new material, so click on subscribe and hit the bell button to get notified as new videos become available.